Welcome to the Power of One podcast. I am Jennifer Page, president of Champions for CASA, the nonprofit auxiliary of the 8th Judicial Court CASA program here in Clark County, Nevada. We are here on the beautiful Las Vegas Strip at the South Point Hotel and Casino. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Emilio Swan.
Thank you, Jen. Today we're joined by two special guests. We have Seth Leavitt and Regina Tangren. We're going to let them introduce themselves, and after that, we'll jump into some questions.
I'm Regina. I started as a family services worker in the independent living unit, and then I did promote to a senior family services worker and the CPS, or Child Protective Services unit.
I've worked for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department as a police officer for the last 16 years, in community engagement for 5 of the last 6 years.
Thank you for sharing. Let's jump right into some questions. So, as you know, former foster youth, went into the system. Let's talk about a little bit about what happens in those first steps of children coming into the foster care system. I was removed from biological mother's custody, and I was placed into the foster care system. From my understanding at that time, it was law enforcement, police officers showed up, and they were the ones who decided whether the house was safe enough for me to continue living in or not. They were the ones who decided whether to place me in foster care or not. And when they handed me off to Child Protective Services, that CPS was the ones making the decisions on whether parents' rights were terminated, whether I was going to a house, all these different things. So I had a misunderstanding on what was going on. And so if y'all want to explain a little bit about who responds first, who makes decisions, just kind of how those first steps take place.
Sure. So if we make an arrest on a domestic violence call, if we arrest both parties, then we have to decide what we're going to do with the kids. That's when we make the decision to call Child Protective Services to decide that for us, because obviously we can't leave the juveniles in the house. They need supervision, and we can't necessarily make that decision to send them to an aunt and uncle or grandma and grandpa, especially if there's violence involved. So unfortunately, it does look like we're the bad guys because we're the ones that showed up, and then children, if they are ultimately removed from the home, it seems like we're the ones that force that situation.
So you're the first one in these children's lives when they start the process of transferring into the foster care system. I know for me, I've had 2 different separate occasions with police officers. The first time that I entered my journey in foster care system, it felt like the police were taking me away from my family. So I did build a interesting relationship with cops. You know, I kind of feared cops a lot growing up. Not because I got into any trouble, but more so because they were the ones that I felt like ripped me out of my home. So what are some other things that you see that you have to respond to where kids are involved?
I probably have been into at least hundreds of apartments and homes where there's not one piece of furniture. Of course, that's not a crime, but that's usually indicative of normal needs not being met.
So it's interesting. I look at it from a perspective, and I guess my question is actually for you, Emilio. I've heard it now referenced by both you and by Seth, who the bad guys are. What's your perspective like today about being removed from care? Are they the bad guys, whoever had to make that decision, or are they really the good guys?
Understanding now that child abuse is not okay. Understanding that, drugs and alcohol was involved. Understanding that the place that I was living in was not safe, providing the basic necessities. Looking back at it now, I would definitely say, law enforcement did more good than bad.
So, Regina, if I can ask you a question. So you've worn many hats. You've been in many different roles. And I'm sure you've seen it like no one else. There's a lot of acronyms that get used throughout this. Maybe you can explain a couple of those for us and for our viewers so they understand what those are, and then talk to us a little bit about what that process looks like from the time Child Protective Services gets involved, transitions into caseworkers.
Some of the acronyms. So even CPS, which that is part of the Department of Family Services. So, and now they're actually called NIA workers, or the Nevada Initial Assessment Worker. So they're that first one that's going to go out there and show up. Some of the other one, even when you're going through court, you hear about, all the different court process. People talk about an R&D. It's a report and disposition. It's a certain case or court hearing that you're going in front of the judge and you're talking about why are they in care? Are they going to stay in care for the children? What do the parents need to be doing? Is there a case plan done? CASA is, it's the court-appointed special advocate. It's not for the parent. It's not for the caseworker. It is no one but for that child.
police officers are on the scene, they call Child Protective Services or NEA workers and make a claim and say, we need you to investigate. What does that look like from the point on?
That worker has 10 days if there was present danger and someone had to be removed to get their full assessment. And then it goes on to a permanency worker, or a lot of people will call the social worker, the long-term worker. And that worker is there to put the family back together.
I grew up in a household with severe domestic violence, drug abuse, you name it, all of the stuff, right? And DCFS was called out multiple times and always found there not to be enough to take the kids out of care. Can you help us understand from two perspectives, what would constitute versus what wouldn't?
I would say, for the parent, caregivers, the adult that's out there, as well as the kids, just be honest for what is really going on.
Sometimes the kids are smart enough to know this has happened before.
Very much.
Yeah.
They know what not to say this time because unfortunately they find comfort in the abuser. And so they want to do whatever it takes to keep them from getting into more trouble.
That makes sense. That's something that I did myself as a foster youth, especially leaving my adopted home. When I was revealing what was going on in the house, I made sure to keep it to only what was happening to me. Another question I want to ask Seth specifically, as that first responder, the human aspect, what goes through your mind as you see some of these things going on, as you hand these kids over to Child Protective Services? I understand that, as a law enforcement officer myself, we're told to separate our emotions from our professional sides. But at the end of the day, we're all human. So what are some things that you feel, some things that you think?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously tough. You have a job to do. That's what we're told. You have a job to do. But it's tough to not think about what the kids are going through once you leave. Unfortunately, for the most part, when we leave, that's kind of the last time we're going to see them, unless we respond again, which is not uncommon,
right,
to the same types of problems.
As the law enforcement hands over the kids to Child Protective Services, what's being explained to these kids in the process? What are they being told as they're removed from mom and dad's house, or their sense of normalcy?
Oh, it all kind of depends on each worker. So I can just speak to my specific times, and then it does also depend on that age, maturity, developmental level of that child. But having conversations with that kid, they can be mad at you, they can be cussing you out, try to fight you, but as a kid is really what's going on. It's being honest with them, using age appropriate terms, cognitive level to term where they can understand.
It's hard for the kids to see us using force on their parents, for one thing, because of course then we're just going to be the bad guy again. Right. So there's the initial showing up and making the scene safe. It's not fun, but the hardest part I think is probably when we're taking those kids away physically from their parents, so we can decide what we're going to do with their parents, and then ultimately decide what we're going to do with them.
From the CPS side of things, when you make the decision, what happens from there?
So phone calls are made. There's continual conversation between the worker in the field and their supervisor back in the office, and that supervisor up to the manager. So they're looking to see what that's going to look like. And a decision can be right there. So there's not a judge immediately involved. That judge is involved 72 hours later to state, was this an appropriate removal, or was this not an appropriate removal? And then it can go forward. And 99.9% of the time, it was an appropriate removal. But if that removal is made, again, depending on the kid and where they are, some of them try to run, physically try to run away from you. They fight you. They'll scream. They try to get out of the vehicle. Younger ones are easier. You can kind of put them in a car seat and strap them in, and they're not going to get out of the car seat. But the scenes can be pretty crazy when you're out there.
It's just heartbreaking to actually have to see these kids go through that. Again, we all are doing the best that we possibly can, right? These are just the realities of what happened.
That's something I struggled with even growing up as a teenager, as a young adult. A lot of the questions I asked myself, well, yeah, this happened because of so-and-so, but what could I have done to change the situation, or what could I have done to keep me from going to this place or that place?
It's interesting. One of the things we talk about all the time is at the end of every decision, there's a child. And that's one of the things that we use as kind of one of our guiding thoughts is just keep on doing it. It doesn't matter how much people get annoyed with you. It doesn't matter, if you're advocating for your kid for the right reasons, you're doing the right thing. So just keep doing it.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. I think I look at this table and I'm just in awe because, every single child deserves safety, deserves stability, deserves love. And, we give that. We do that for these kids. So thank you.
People go into this with a good heart. And there is definitely a lot of work to be done. But I want to thank you both for coming and answering our questions and giving your perspectives on what it's like for the initial process of a child.
All right. So once again, I'd like to remind everyone there are 3 ways that we like to say you can help a child in need. The first way to be able to help is obviously become a volunteer yourself. If you have 10 hours a month that you can dedicate one-on-one to a child in need, that you can become their CASA volunteer, their court-appointed special advocate to help advocate for them throughout their lives. Spend that one-on-one time with that child, go out in the community, really forge that bond and advocate for them throughout their entire lives. That's the best way. We need you desperately. We've got over 3,000 kids in care, and only about 500 to 700 kids are being managed right now through our program. So we definitely need volunteers. If you're not able to help us in that way, you can always support us financially. So we are a 501c3. We do fundraising, and that fundraising all gets used directly to further our mission at Champions for CASA, which is to recruit new volunteers, to retain our current volunteers, and to recognize them for the hard work that they're doing. All of the work that our volunteers do comes out of their personal pockets. They're not funded in any way. So whether that be the gas that it takes to get to and from a visit with a child, whether that means taking them out for lunch or dinner or taking them out on an experience in the community, that money is all given directly by that CASA volunteer to give those children those opportunities that they can have. And the third way you can help is if you're not able to do one of the other 2, please tell everybody you know. Because if not you, then someone you know can definitely do this for a child. So together we can all make a difference and can all start to really make sure that we can further our goal of making sure that every child in the state of Nevada has a CASA volunteer. So thank you so much.